Today I'm going to build a table saw sled for this table saw. Now you might ask, what is a table saw sled? Over here I have another table saw. I already built one for this. I didn't really think I needed one, but I saw a couple people make theirs. So I thought, alright, I'll give it a try. And man, it sure is nice. So nice, in fact, I'm going to make one for this one. This is my portable table saw. It's a junky Ryobi. But you know, the fence is pretty accurate and it kicks butt. Except for the switch. Yeah, I typically like to make all my wood cuts outside, at least with these two saws. So one thing I made with this is I only made this 3/4 of an inch tall. I'm going to modify that. I'm going to make it taller, like 2 or 3 inches. That way I can have the blade up and do full cuts. Right now I'm just limited to this, which is not too bad. Depends how you set your jig up though. And this thing's great. There's room for improvements. This should be filled in so the blade doesn't come through and accidentally get you if you're trying to cut. Oh, my retard, I'm going to cut. Oh, let's cut. Yeah, don't do that. So I'm thinking about also getting some red spray paint or something and spraying this red. But I think it's far enough to figure not to cut my finger off, hopefully. Take a piece of 1/4 inch. Just going to fit it to the saw. As big as a table on the saw, that's how big I'm going to cut this to. And I'm going to cut pine or poplar to fit inside here for the runners. So let's go do that. Okay, so I got my pieces of wood glued on here. I took some pin nails or brad nails and I shot them through. You can see them coming out there from the bottom up. See if it's in the track pretty tight. I'm going to wax it. Just break these off. Once you get it off, you take a block sander, block sand the surface, and that'll smooth it out. Alright, so you see I got it all cleaned up. Slide's pretty alright. The slide better. And I only made mine this big for convenience. I don't want to have big template on top of my saw. I'm just going to leave it up here. But you can make it bigger, deeper, wider. My purpose is going to be perfect. Better than not having it, that's for sure. Yeah, you get really creative when making these. It's no big deal. Here's a piece of wood I'm going to cut in half. It's 4 inches wide. I'm going to cut it to 2 inches. So I'll have 2 inches here, and then it'll build up 2 inches, and that'll become my fence. I could clamp a block on here if I have to later on. I'm cutting a bunch of pieces of whatever, but nothing too fancy. So I'm going to go cut this piece. Okay, got the pieces cut. I'm going to screw this way, probably with 2-inch screws, and then come up this way with 3/4 inch screws, countersink bottom side. Cut the pieces to fit the width of the board for this nice little jig. Got some countersink holes. That's going to be for the 2-inch screws that are going to go back here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pre-drill for the 3/4 inch screws that are going to go here. And you want to avoid putting a screw anywhere that the blade's going to go. So keep that in mind. So I went ahead and marked out center of the 2-inch, which is 1 inch, and I pre-drill the holes. And this is where the blade's going to go. So I'm not going to hit that. Got the holes pre-drilled. Now I'm going to go to the back side and countersink those. Here's the back side. It's only 1/4 inch, so I'm going to go in reverse and slowly bring it down. Let's see. And I'm not going to go through the wood, but I'm going in reverse. Still have to be careful. You want to have a sharp bit. Then you might want to block sand the bottom a little bit to smooth things out. While you have the block sander out, you might as well go ahead and smooth out your other holes. Now you can start to secure your fence. Square it up. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the saw on. It's in the channel. I'm going to tilt the blade up. Going to tilt the blade up as it's running while it's in the channel to bring it through here, and that'll help us establish our squareness on the blade. One thing I do want to point out is with these Ryobi table saws, this one's not even that old. No, that's pretty old, I guess. A lot of use. The switches, they always burn out. If you have an old, or if you have a Ryobi table saw like this and it just quits working, it's still a good saw. It's the switch that's messed up. So you got to go in there. Either you could add a switch, you could hardwire it and take it apart. It's pretty easy to do. Add a switch right here or whatever you want to do. Or you could just wire it direct, so when you plug it in, it'll come on. And I have another one of these Ryobis that I did just that. I wired up a switch, but then this one, I don't have a switch for it. It's wired direct. So here's what I do. I take this plug thing, the 6-way, and it has this off and on thing. And then, here, let me get it hooked up, I'll show you. So here it is. Here's the switch. It's plugged in directly to the power. And then the table saw itself is plugged in down here. So you can't really use this for anything else. It's just for the switch. So here's my little off and on button. Yeah. Okay, so now it's all block sanded. Power's hooked up. Next step is to turn it on and lift the blade. So let's do that. Okay, I guess this table saw's no good. Look at that blade shake. Oh my gosh. I wonder what caused that. I just had to change the blade out and it was stuck, so maybe I bent the shaft. That sucks. Oh man. So, good thing I have another saw just like this. Got a couple actually, so I'm gonna see if it fits in there and we're gonna try that. Okay, here's the other one that I have. This one actually kicks ass, but the body's falling off real bad. I've already tried to fix it. See it there? So, I guess I'll try to fix it again or switch bodies out and just use this, the good part, to make my cuts. And I just took the blade from here too a few hours ago. So here's the fence. I know it fits in there nice because I kind of created around this one. Now this strip is going to be a little wider than it should be, which kind of blows. Before I go crazy, I better make sure it's the blade or if it's the shaft. Shaft actually looks pretty good. You know, I should unplug this sucker. Let's get this unplugged. Man, hate for me to accidentally knock into it. Cut my finger off there. Alright, so if it's the shaft or it's the blade, I think it's a shaft, but either way I have to take the blade off, so let's do that and take a look. Another thing I like to do is run 7 1/4 inch skill saw blades on my table saw. It's really good if you're cutting sheet goods. So let's take a look, see if it's bent. Oh, good. The other saw blade's bent. Cool. Okay, so let's get back to building the fence. Before I do that, we're going to wax the bottom with this stuff. Here's what it looks like. Okay, now that that's done, it rolls a little better. So let's fire it up again and lift the blade up and we'll see where we're at. Yeah, so take a look at that thin curve. That's going to mean less sawdust and more precision. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So now that I have this big curve, this big cut, and this little cut, that sucks. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a piece of scrap Formica and laminate this whole thing out. And that way I'll still have the precision of this nice little cut. Another thing I noticed is this is really tight. So I'm just, after it's waxed, yeah, real good idea. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to release some of this tightness on here by block sanding this. I'm just going to spray some WD-40 on it too. Doesn't really matter to me. Maybe get a little bit on the whole board. Okay. Oh yeah, that's way better. Oh yeah, check out my Formica job. Instead of spray painting it red, I have this little scrap piece of red. Yeah, actually all this is scrap. Okay, so we'll get some power. Okay, now we'll square up the fence that we're going to put right here. So this is the 7 1/4 inch blade. See how tall that is. When you cut, you're on 1/4 inch. You're on 1/4 inch, and you're up 1 1/4 inches. So you got about 1 9/16 inches you can cut right there, like this. 1 1/4 inch here. Not too bad. Okay, so I got this old framing square. Simply all you're going to do is put it against the blade. Just square this up, and you know this should be pretty square anyways. If it's square, the motor's square. So let's do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just take a chance. I'm going to flush this out with our jig. I'm going to screw it with the screws, 3/4 inch, and place this here afterward and just double check to see how square I am. From there, if I need to adjust it, I'll just simply back the screw out a little bit, smack it over a tad, and tighten it until it's good. Okay, that took a second. I didn't screw it completely off. I'll screw it off once I make any final adjustments. Alright, it's starting to look like a table saw sled. Yeah, I'm going to add a big piece back here, tall, hold the verticals, and probably have it 3 inches. That way I can have a full, whatever this is, I could cut this distance. I think it's like 16 inches. Okay, let's check this thing for square. So power's unplugged. You can see there, unplugged. Nice little switch. It's not in use. Alright, so we're holding it there. We'll check it. Looks pretty square. Damn. Looks pretty good. Let's try it from this side. See if my square is square. Alright. Maybe the back's touching. It's hard to say. We'll check it. We'll cut a piece and we'll flip it over. We'll check it with that. In the meantime, I'm going to put that piece up along the back. That way I can have full cuts. Alright, I cut this piece down to 3 inches, and that's going to sit here. I'm going to screw that in with 2-inch screws. That way I can back this up at its full height of 1.25 inches, which I'm going to bring it here, and I'll still have the support of the whole jig itself. Let's do that. Okay, here I'm going to use 2-inch screws, secure from the bottom up, and I don't have to countersink it because the 2-inch screw, the force is just going to sit flush. I'll suck it up. Okay, so this is the bottom of the jig. Got the 2-inch screw sucked up, and it's not important that this has to be square. You just hold it about a 1/16 in. That should be alright. The power is plugged back in. The blade is lifted at maximum height. The fence is really square, seam square. So now I'm going to run the blade through this backstop, the support, at its full height, 1.25 inches, which is only going to bring us about halfway, and we'll still have support so the jig doesn't flex and break. Okay, as you can see, got that cut. This is going to be a nice support, and it's still an 1.25 inch blade. And look at that little blip right there. And if you're cutting and your finger's there and you go too far, sometimes if you're cutting and not paying attention, or some people aren't, at least I do. So I'm going to take another piece of wood and I'm going to secure that here, so no matter what, my finger won't get cut. Got them countersunk. Now I'm just going to screw it, split the blade difference, glue it and screw it. Okay, here it is, laminated out. Looks pretty good, almost like a professional did it. Looks good though. See? Don't put your thumb here. It's red. Don't put your thumb there. Put it here. As you can see here, I have a piece of wood that I'm using as a stop, a clamp here for this fence I designed. So if you want to cut, certain width pieces, it's really easy to do. However, I do recommend when you build one for your house, for your home, that you extend this out, the fence. You could go a foot, whatever. You could do it however you want, whatever your needs are. Now it's time to check to see if it's square. It's no big deal if it's not. You just unscrew these screws, which I haven't fastened off yet because it's not done. Bump it around, screw them back. Got a scrap piece of wood. Now it's time to see how square this thing is. Okay, it's pretty damn good, squareness wise, which is good. I don't have to do any more adjustment on it. I didn't do any anyways, so it makes it even better. So let's see the span that I have. Let's see, I could actually cut 14-inch wide pieces. Okay, if that's the case, I could cut this then. Let's do it. There you have it. About 30 minutes worth of work. Not a big deal at all. And it actually looks pretty good. Cool. Doesn't weigh that much either. Yeah, it's a nice jig. Have it hung over. Get it in there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So don't cut your finger off, and always wear safety glasses.